Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you employed, sir?
I work with the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been employed with Orange County?
Just under 10 years, since October of 2001.
Okay. Do you have an assignment with them currently?
I do.
What is that?
I work for the Professional Standards Section, better known as Internal Affairs.
In July of 2008, did you have a different assignment?
I did.
What was that?
I was a detective corporal in the Missing Persons Child Abuse Unit.
Okay. Can you explain for the jurors what the responsibilities of a detective corporal in that unit would entail?
Along with supervisory responsibilities, we had 3 detectives and 4 civilians under our command. We also investigated cases of missing persons and investigated allegations of child abuse.
As of July of 2008, how long had you had that assignment?
I was promoted and transferred there in April of 2008.
Okay. Prior to your promotion, what background did you have with the Orange County Sheriff?
For just over 2 years, I worked with the Homicide Division.
What else?
Prior to that, I spent a year working as a detective in Eastside Property Unit,
What is that?
investigating property crimes on the east side of Orange County.
Okay. Burglaries, things like that?
Yes.
To people's residences,
That's-
break-ins at houses and things like that?
Yes, that's correct.
Prior to your assignment as a detective, did you work in patrol?
I did.
On July 16th of 2008, did you receive a call from then Sergeant Reginald Hosey regarding the events occurring at 4937 Hope Spring Drive?
I did.
As a result of that call, did you respond to 4937 Hope Spring?
I did.
Do you recall what time you arrived on scene?
Just before 4 o'clock in the morning, between 3:30 and 4 o'clock, 3:51, I believe.
When you arrived there, did you meet with an individual by the name of Caylee Anthony?
I did.
Did you become aware that she had given any sort of written statement in regards to the events that the patrol officers were investigating?
Yes.
If I may approach the witness, Your Honor. I'm going to show you what's been marked as KI for identification.
I do.
Were you provided with that upon your arrival that morning?
Yes.
Okay. From the patrol deputies who were there?
Yes.
Did you show it to Caylee Anthony?
I believe I did because I ended up referring to it in a later interview with her, so yes.
All right. After showing it to her, did you ask her if this was in fact her statement?
Yes, I did.
Did you ask her if she wrote it herself?
I did.
Okay. And did she adopt that statement as being one that she had written out?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce KI for identification into evidence.
What says the defense?
We would object as to the proper predicate. This detective does not know the circumstances surrounding how that statement was taken. It's not the officer who took the statement.
Response from the state of Florida?
Your Honor, the witness has indicated that these statements were adopted in their entirety by Ms. Anthony, that he had shown her the statement, asked her if she wrote it, and if it was in fact her statement. They are adoptive admissions.
Any additional objection besides not a proper predicate? No. Okay, based upon that objection will be overruled. It'll be received in evidence as. Okay, Mark it, Madam Clerk. Then we can hand it back to the witness.
I'm sorry, that's number 60? Permission to publish 60 in evidence to the jury, Your Honor. One moment, if I may have a moment.
Yes.
Actually, Judge, I have an additional objection I'd like to.
It's in now.
Um,
It's in.
Our previous motions and objections.
Okay, renewed objection, same prior rulings. Thank you, Mr. Bass.
A moment to set up the document camera. Apparently, there's a slight technical difficulty with trying to display it on the monitor. I apologize.
Yes, ma'am.
Detective Melich, you see the document in front of you?
I do.
It's published here.
Read, if I may.
You may.
Can you read to the jury Miss Anthony's statement?
On Monday, June 9th, 2008, between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m., I, Casey Anthony, took my daughter, Caylee Marie Anthony, to her nanny's apartment. Caylee will be 3 years old on August 9, 2008. She was born on August 9, 2005. Caylee is about 3 feet tall, white female, with shoulder-length light brown hair. She has dark hazel eyes, parentheses, brown/green, close parentheses, and a small birthmark on her left shoulder. On the day of her disappearance, Caylee was wearing a pink shirt with jean shorts, white sneakers, and her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. On Monday, June 9, 2008, between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m., I took Caylee to the Sawgrass Apartments, located on Conway Road. Caylee's nanny, Zenaida Fernandez-Gonzalez, has watched her for the past year and a half to 2 years. Zenaida is 25 years old and is from New York. She is roughly 5 foot 7 inches tall, 140 pounds. She has dark brown curly hair and brown eyes. Zenaida's birthday is in September. I met Zenaida through a mutual friend, Jeffrey Michael Hopkins. She has watched his son Zachary Hopkins for about 6 months to a year. I met Zenaida in 2004 around Christmas. On the date listed above, June 9, 2008, after dropping Caylee off at Zenaida's apartment, I proceeded to head to my place of employment, Universal Studios Orlando. I have worked at Universal for over 4 years, since June of 2004. I left work around 5 p.m. and went back to the apartment to pick up my daughter. However, after reaching the apartment, I realized that neither Zenaida, Caylee, or either of her 2 roommates were home. I have briefly met Raquel Farrell and Jennifer Rosa on various occasions. After calling Zenaida to see where she and Caylee were and when they were coming home, I waited outside of the apartment. I had called Zenaida earlier that morning, prior to bringing Caylee over for the afternoon. When I called her that afternoon, her phone was no longer in service. 2 hours passed, and around 7 p.m., I left the apartment and headed to familiar places that Zenaida would go with Caylee. One of Caylee's favorite places is J. Blanchard Park. I spent the rest of that evening pacing and worrying at one of the few places I felt, quote, at home, unquote, my boyfriend Anthony Lazzaro's apartment. For the past 4 weeks, since Caylee's disappearance, I have stayed at Anthony's apartment in Sutton Place. I have spent every day since Monday, June 9, 2008, looking for my daughter. I have lied and stolen from my friends and family to do whatever I could by any means to find my daughter. I avoided calling the police or even notifying my own family out of fear. I have been and still am afraid of what has or may happen to Caylee. I have not had any contact with Zenaida since Thursday, June 12, 2008. I received a quick call from Zenaida. Not once have I been able to ask her for my daughter or gain any information on where I can find her. Every day I have gone to malls, parks, any place I could remember Zenaida taking Caylee. I have gone out and tried to find any information about Caylee or Zenaida, whether by going to a popular bar or restaurant. I have contacted Jeff Hopkins on several occasions to see if he had heard from or seen Zenaida. Jeff currently lives in Jacksonville, Florida. On Tuesday, July 15, 2008, around 12 p.m., I received a phone call from my daughter, Caylee. Today was the first day I have heard her voice in over 4 weeks. I'm afraid of what Caylee is going through. After 31 days, I know that the only thing that matters is getting my daughter back. With many and all attempts to contact Zenaida, and within the one short conversation on June 12, 2008, I was never able to check on the status or well-being of my daughter. Zenaida never made an attempt to explain why Caylee is no longer in Orlando, or if she is ever going to bring her home.
You review that statement with Miss Anthony?
If I recall correctly, it was in a spare bedroom they had at the Anthony home.
Okay. When you arrived at the Anthony home, did you ask Ms. Anthony if she would speak to you about the statement that she had written prior to your arrival?
If you're referring to Casey Anthony, yes.
Miss Anthony?
Yes.
Yes, Casey Anthony. All right. And did she agree to speak with you?
Yes.
Did you stay in what you referred to as the spare bedroom and speak with her further?
Yes.
Okay. At that point, did you place her on tape?
Yes.
Audio tape. Okay. Have you had the opportunity to listen to that audio tape?
Yes.
Does the audio fairly and accurately reflect the conversation that you had with Casey Anthony?
Yes.
MU for identification to evidence, MB being a transport.
What says the defense?
Would renew all previous motions and objections.
Noting previous motions and objections, objections will be overruled and it will be received in evidence.
Detective Melich, have you had the opportunity to review the transcript that was generated from the tape?
Yes.
And have you determined that the transcript is an accurate version of what also appears on tape?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to publish 61 in evidence to the jury.
Okay, you may publish.
July 16, 2008. The time right now is 04:11 hours. I'm Detective Melich with the Orange County Sheriff's Office. Present here at 4937 Hope Spring Drive. I reference Orange County case number 08-069208. I am with Caylee Anthony, is that correct?
Yes.
And Caylee, would you please state your birthday for me?
03/19/1986.
Okay. Caylee, you understand this is being recorded?
Yes.
You have any objection to that?
No.
All right. Caylee, I got called here by Sergeant Reggie Hosey with the Orange County Sheriff's Office in reference to a missing child. We sat here and talked for a short moment before we went on tape because I wanted to make sure that your sworn statement, which I'm looking at, was accurate. I'm looking at 4 pages of a sworn statement. On the bottom appears to be your signature. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're saying that everything contained in these statements are true and accurate?
Yes.
Also, before I turned on the recorder, I gave you a chance because I wanted to explain what happens if you make a false report or if there's something about this incident that you're not telling us the truth of. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to make sure I made it perfectly clear that, if you want to go ahead and rescind this statement, and if you want to tell me a different story about what happened, mm-hmm. if you're trying to fabricate a story to kind of make something look a little bit better, mm-hmm. now's your time to tell me. Are you telling me that this is the story you want to stick with?
That's the truth. It's the story I'm going to stick with. Yes.
Okay. In your own words, let's go back. Your daughter's name is Caylee, Caylee.
Yes.
Marie Anthony. She was born August 9th.
2005.
Okay. And according to your statement back on August 9th, back on June 9th, 2008, you took Caylee to a babysitter's house.
Yes.
And who was this babysitter?
Her name is Zenaida Fernandez-Gonzalez.
Do you know how to spell the first name?
Zenaida.
And where was Zenaida's? Where did you drop your child off?
The Sawgrass Apartments on Conway in Michigan.
Do you remember the address?
I don't remember the address.
Do you remember an apartment number?
210.
Okay.
It's on the 2nd floor.
If you were to pull into the Sawgrass Apartments, would the building be the one closest to the road, furthest back, halfway?
As soon as you go straight, you go over one speed bump, and it's the first one on the right-hand side.
Okay, is there a pool next to it, or is there anything about the apartment that stands out?
There's a welcome sign. It's, I guess there's a little shed close to the building, maybe about 10 yards away.
Okay. How long had you known Zenaida?
Almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years Christmas this year.
And where did you meet her? Who did you meet her through?
A mutual friend. His name is Jeffrey Michael Hopkins. I met him at Nickelodeon at Universal, and I met her through him. She was his son's nanny at the time.
Does Jeffrey still work at Universal?
No, he does not.
How long has it been since he left?
About 9-10 months, give or take.
Did he move back to Jacksonville?
He moved up to North Carolina for a short time and moved down to Jacksonville within the last 3 months.
When was the last time you spoke with him?
About a week and a half ago.
Okay. Do you know a telephone number for him?
I can find a number for him. I don't know a number offhand. No, I do not.
You mentioned something before we went on tape about your cell phones.
Yes. I have 2 phones. I just received a new phone through work, through Universal. The phone won't keep charged, so I use my old phone that I actually had gotten, again, through Universal for work.
Okay. Did you lose a phone?
Yes.
Was it your personal phone?
It was my personal phone, but I also use it for business.
Okay. What's the number for the phone that you lost?
407-619-9286. It's the same
keep that same number?
Yes, it's
You
still
just
the
lost
same
the
number.
phone.
I just lost the phone.
And in that phone, you're saying was the SIM card, and the SIM card had the contact
Actually,
information?
the SIM card is in my Nokia phone, but I know there's numbers saved to the cell phone itself. So if we get the actual phone, I know I have one other number for Zenaida, and probably a number for Jeff besides work numbers, and
But they're not in your SIM card?
they're not saved on the SIM card, they're saved on the phone. I've been trying to figure out on that new phone how to save numbers from the phone to the SIM card and switch them back and forth. So that way I have everything all in one piece.
Okay, so the phone where you had the number saved was lost.
Yes, I filed an incident report.
But how did you end up keeping the SIM card?
I had taken it out. I know I left the phone on my desk at work after I'd switched the SIM card back to my old phone, because this was the phone that actually would keep charge. Mm-hmm. And I want to be able to have a working phone instead of having a phone that would only stay charged for about a half hour and then it would die and I can't make any more calls. It's, for me, not practical.
After you switched the SIM card was when the phone went?
I know I left it on my desk and I hadn't been at work for at least 3 or 4 days.
And you said you made the report to Universal? Or
Yes, with security.
when was
9
that?
days ago.
9 days ago?
Yes,
Okay. So you met Zenaida through Jeffrey Hopkins
I did.
and his son Zach Hopkins, I guess. Zenaida used to watch over Zach?
Yes,
And you say you've known Zenaida for about 4 years?
almost 4 years.
You,
Yes.
you knew her before you had your child?
Well, I met her just before I was actually pregnant at the time. So,
And when did she start watching over your child?
it's been within the last 1.5 to 2 years that she started watching Caylee. I had another friend watch Caylee that I've known since middle school. When she went back to school, I was looking for a new nanny. Jeff offered to have Zenaida watch both kids. She agreed, and it kind of went from there.
Before Zenaida started watching over your child, who was the nanny?
Her name was Lauren Gibbs, Gibbs.
And when did Lauren stop watching your child?
Maybe April of 2006.
Okay. And right in April 2006, roughly, is when Zenaida started watching
Yes.
over? How would you normally drop off, or how would you normally do the exchange with your child and Zenaida? Would you drop the child off? Would she meet you somewhere?
I would usually drop her off. For a few months, we would go over to Jeff's house. He lived over in Avalon Park. That was a couple years ago, almost a couple years ago,
And you would go to Jeff's house, why?
to drop off Caylee. That's where Zenaida would go to watch both of the kids.
Okay.
It was in a nice centralized area. He had a decent sized house. It was good room for the two of them. Then I started bringing Caylee over to Zenaida's apartment.
How long were you using, or were you going to Zenaida's apartment? When did you start taking Caylee?
I guess maybe the end of 2006, beginning of 2007.
So since the end of 2006, beginning of 07,
Mm-hmm.
you started taking Caylee to Zenaida's house on Sawgrass.
She had an apartment on, I guess it's considered Glenwood, but it's off of Bumby and Robinson, close to downtown. She lived there for quite a few months and moved over to Sawgrass just recently this year.
The house on Bumby, do you remember the address or remember where it's at?
I know it's off of Glenwood. I don't remember the apartment number offhand. No, I do not.
And how long would you say you dropped the child off there, from the end of 06, beginning of 07 to...
Maybe about 6-7 months, so maybe the middle of 2007.
So she moved in the Sawgrass about the middle of 07?
She's been at that apartment in Sawgrass for about the last 3 or 4 months. She lived with her mom for a little bit.
Where does her mom live?
She lived off of Michigan.
Do you know where the house is?
It's not a very well marked neighborhood. It crosses just over Conway. It's one of the big stretches of neighborhoods.
Had you dropped the child off there before?
Yes.
If you had to find the place, would you be able to find it?
Most likely, yes. I think I'd remember the house.
Okay, so she was living off of Glenwood, then moved into her mom's house somewhere off of Michigan, and then moved
And
into
then over to
Sawgrass.
Sawgrass.
So Sawgrass 3 or 4 months ago, off of Glenwood until mid 07, then mom's house.
Her mom wasn't living there at the time. Her mom had gotten another place with her sister, but she was staying over at the house and moved in with the 2 girls that are referenced in the pages.
She was living with these 2 girls at Sawgrass?
Yes.
Okay. Go back to your statement. You dropped off Caylee on June 9th, and walk me through. You dropped her off to go to work? Okay. Get off of work and go from there.
I got off of work, left Universal, driving back to pick up Caylee like a normal day, and I show up to the apartment, knock on the door, nobody answers. So I call Zenaida's cell phone, and it's out of service. It says that the phone is no longer in service. Excuse me. So I sit down on the steps and wait for a little bit to see if maybe it was just a fluke, if something happened. And time passed. I didn't hear from anyone. No one showed up to the house. So I went over to J. Blanchard Park and checked a couple other places where maybe possibly they would have gone. A couple stores, just regular places that I know Zenaida shops at, and she's taken Caylee before. And after about 7 o'clock, when I still hadn't heard anything, I was getting pretty upset, pretty frantic, and I went to a neutral place. I didn't really want to come home. I wasn't sure what I'd say about not knowing where Caylee was. Still hoping that I would get a call or, find out that Caylee was coming back so that I could go get her. And I ended up going to my boyfriend Anthony's house, who lives in Sutton Place.
Did you talk to Anthony about what happened with Caylee?
No, I did not.
Had Anthony ever seen Caylee before?
Yes, he had.
They don't.
Had you talked to anyone about Caylee, about your incident with Caylee? Or the fact
Outside
that
of-
she's missing?
A couple people, a couple mutual friends.
Who did you talk to about it?
I talked to Jeffrey Hopkins.
Mhm.
I also attempted to contact Zenaida's mother and never received a call back from her.
Do you know Zenaida's mother's name?
Wow, man. I think it's Gloria.
Do you know a telephone number for Zenaida's mom?
I do not know.
Do you have any of these numbers programmed into your SIM card that you kept into your other phone?
No, I do not.
How long did you have this old phone?
I've had the Nokia for almost a full year.
Okay. So after a full year of dealing with Zenaida and having her babysit, and you don't
Switching
remember...
numbers back and forth. Zenaida's number has changed a couple different times. She switched services between having Sprint and having AT&T or Singular.
What about Jeffrey? You've known him for at least 4 years.
His number's changed a couple different times from when he moved from Orlando up to North Carolina and back down to Jacksonville. I know I do have a current number for him.
How would you get that number?
If we can find that other phone, or I might have it online, I may be able to access it off the internet.
Okay. Who else did you talk to about this besides Jeffrey? You said you tried to call Zenaida's mom. Did you talk to Jeffrey? Who else did you talk about?
I talked to Juliette Lewis. She's one of my coworkers at Universal.
She works... You still work at Universal?
Yes,
What do you do at Universal?
I'm an event coordinator.
Okay. What is Juliet? What position is she? Where she works?
She's also an event coordinator. We work in the same department.
You have a number for Juliet?
Ooh, offhand, I can't think of one.
Is she in your SIM card?
No, she's not. Some of the more recent numbers, her number just changed because she just moved back up north. She, within the last 2 months, has finished moving up to New York. She's subleasing her apartment.
So Juliet doesn't work at Universal anymore?
No, she does not.
When did she leave Universal?
About 2 months ago.
Who else did you talk to about it?
It's been within that small group. I've tried to find out just information from people, going out to different places like Fusion Ultra Lounge and a couple bars that I know Zenaida had gone to downtown before to see if, just kind of random talk, if anybody heard about my nanny or talked to her lately.
Did you tell anyone specifically that Zenaida took your child?
No. The only two people that I specifically told were Jeff and Juliet.
And you don't have a number for Juliet?
Not offhand, no, I do not.
It's not on your phone. It might be online.
It's definitely online. I know it's on one of our old worksheets. Her old number, which could still be active, I'm not sure if it is, but I know she does have a new number, which I just programmed into that other phone.
When was the last time you talked to Juliet?
About 3 weeks ago, shortly after this happened.
So you talked to her after she left?
Mm-hmm.
What's the reason, I asked you this before and I'll ask you just for the record, what's the reason you didn't call the police before? Since right now we're here because your grandparents, or your parents asked you about the child and they were concerned, didn't get an answer as to where the child was, they called the sheriff's office.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you call prior to today?
I think part of me was naive enough to think that I could handle this myself, which obviously I couldn't. And I was scared that something would happen to her if I did notify the authorities or got the media involved, or my parents, which I know would have done the same thing. Just the fear of the unknown, fear of the potential of Caylee getting hurt, of not seeing my daughter again.
I asked you this at the onset and asked you before we went on tape, and I'll ask you again just to make sure we're clear. Is there anything about this story that you're telling me that is untrue, or is there anything that you want to change or divert from what you've already told me?
No, sir.
Did you cause any injury to your child, Caylee?
No, sir.
Did you hurt Caylee or leave her somewhere, and you're worried that if we find that out, that people are going to look at you the wrong way?
No, sir.
And you're telling me that Zenaida took your child without your permission and hasn't returned her?
The last person that I've seen with my daughter, yes.
Where did Zenaida, does she have another job besides watching children?
She has a seasonal ID for Universal. However, the only job that I know that she's had for the last few years, she's been a nanny.
So seasonal employee at Universal?
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time she worked at Universal, do you know?
I have no idea.
Does Caylee take any medications? Does she suffer from any conditions, any medical conditions that we need to know of?
Not at all.
It was brought up before about taking some money from some people, and I want to make sure I get it on tape. Do you have any problems with drugs or narcotics, either prescription narcotics or drugs, cocaine, ecstasy, meth, anything like that?
Nothing like that.
Have you ever been committed for thoughts of suicide? Have you ever been on the lakeside, anything like that?
No.
Is there any underlying cause to why Zenaida would have taken your child?
No. Nothing that...
Did she ever make any statements to you about...
Only how much she loves Caylee and how great of a kid she is.
And have you talked, and when you talked to Jeffrey afterwards, I'm assuming that Jeffrey's child is still with him?
His child is still with him.
Okay. You said Zenaida had family up in New England, up in New York or
Yes,
something?
she has family down south. Her mother and her sister. Her brother's in New York. She's originally from New York.
And where's down south?
Miami area.
Where's she originally from?
New York.
She born and raised in New York? She have family outside of the country, or?
I don't know. As far as I know, she pretty much grew up there, moved down here, went to the University of Florida.
Is she Puerto Rican? Is she Dominican? Is she white?
She's mixed. She's black and Puerto Rican.
And you don't know what her birthday is, or you don't know what her birthday is?
It's in September. That's all I can remember at the moment.
If, when we finish this, would you be willing to drive with me to show me where her mom lives and the apartment that you used to drop her off at?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything I haven't asked you about, Caylee or Zenaida, or just this incident in particular that you feel is important that you wanted to tell me about before I turn this off?
I mean, Caylee has very distinctive features, even if her hair was cut or changed. She has dark hazel eyes, they're brown and green. She has a birthmark on her left shoulder.
What kind of birthmark?
It's just like a small line. It almost looks like a small little beauty mark.
Anything else?
I just want my daughter back.
Okay. Did you raise your right hand for me?
Yes.
Do you swear and affirm everything you just told me is the truth?
Yes.
Detective Melich, this statement was taken at 4:11 a.m. and lasted about 20 minutes. Did you head out immediately after taking the statement to go look in those places that you asked Ms. Anthony about?
Yes.
Okay, where did you go?
The first location we went to, later I would find out, turned out to be 301 North Hillside. That's the location she mentioned that was near the intersection of Bumby and Robinson, or off of Glenwood.
Did you get out of the vehicle at that location at 301 North Hillside?
No, we drove by the building, and I asked her if she could point out to me the apartment or windows that belonged to Zenaida or her family. And she pointed out two windows on the side of the building facing Robinson. And she indicated the two windows, one above and one below, both belonged to the same apartment. and that Zenaida and her family had lived there at one point.
Now, you had mentioned that this address at 301 North Hillside was off Glenwood and Bumby. Is that what you had testified to?
At Glenwood and Robinson, because I believe Bumby runs parallel to Glenwood, at 301 North Hillside.
All right. During the course of the investigation into the disappearance of Caylee Anthony, did you come to find out that there are individuals who Ms. Anthony knew that lived on Glenwood?
Yes.
Who would that be?
Ricardo Morales, and at one point in time, Amy Huizenga, lived at 232 Glenwood, which is directly across from where this building is.
During the drive that morning where she was showing you these locations, did she mention that friends of hers lived directly across the street?
She did not.
Did she mention that she had spent time since her daughter had been missing at the location on Glenwood?
She did not.
Aside from the address on Hillside, did you go to any other location?
We went from there to the Sawgrass Apartments.
What happened at the Sawgrass Apartments?
I asked her to direct me into the Sawgrass Apartments and point out the apartment that she claimed to have dropped Caylee off on June 9th.
And where were you directed?
I was directed to the first apartment building inside the complex on the right, apartment 210.
Did either of you get out of the car at that point?
I did not, no, neither one.
Okay. Aside from directing you to or pointing out apartment 210, did she make any other statement at that point in the morning about what happened at apartment 210?
I don't recall, no.
Was that the last location that you visited?
No.
Where else did you go?
Almost catty corner from the Sawgrass Apartments are, just forgot the name, the apartments at Conway. There's an intersection right there at Conway and Michigan. And I believe it's the apartments at Conway. If I'm mistaken, please correct me. But it's several single-story townhomes that are, you have several homes that are attached in one building, but each individually owned.
And what was it that you were supposed to have been doing there at this address?
She claims this is one of the locations that Zenaida had lived and that she had dropped off Caylee several times in the past. So I asked her to direct me to the apartment or the townhome, for lack of a better word, that she had dropped the child off at. And we drove through the entire complex at least once, and she wasn't quite sure which apartment it was, but said it was in the generic or a general area.
Okay. Did you go anywhere else?
No, that's the only location we actually got out of the car, though, because it was starting to get light out, so people were starting to get up to go to work.
All right. Once you all got out of the car, what occurred?
I asked Casey well, let me preface this. We had a marked patrol car also following us with a uniform in case I were to get out of the car.
Overruled.
You can continue.
In case I were to get out of the car and knock on the door, I wanted uniform presence, so there was another marked car with us. I had asked Casey to sit in the car. I rolled the passenger window down. I told her I would knock on the doors of the area. There are several apartments in that area that she indicated. And if she noticed anyone or looked familiar to her, to indicate it to me, and then we would go from there.
All right. Miss Anthony?
Yes.
And did Miss Anthony tell you that any of those apartments or people in those apartments looked familiar to her?
No.
Were you directed anywhere else by Miss Anthony?
No.
Okay. After all of this process is completed, about what time it is it? Did you say that it was starting to get light?
I believe we were at the crossings at Conway, the Conway Apartments, about just after 6 in the morning.
Once that process was completed, where did you go with Miss Anthony?
I drove her home.
Okay. Did either one of you have her cell phone?
No. I don't recall if she had it. I didn't have it.
When you dropped her at home, did you just let her out of the car and she went into the house? What happened?
Yeah, pretty much it.
Did you indicate to her that you would continue to investigate some of the information that she had provided to you?
We had small talk as I dropped her off. Obviously, I said, we're going to look to try and see if we can find Caylee. I can't remember specifically what I told her, but in the general sense, yes.
Okay. Did you leave at that point and begin an investigation into some of the information that she had provided to you?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I have no other questions of the witness.
Cross-examination?
Good afternoon, Detective Melich.
Good afternoon, sir.
Do you ever go by any other names other than Yuri Melich?
Sustain.
You ever go by the name of Dick Tracy Orlando?
Sustain. Next question.
Judge, may we approach?
No, sir.
I'd like to be able to show the relevance of this line of
Okay,
questioning.
you can approach.
Detective Melich, you arrived on the scene at 4 a.m.,
Just prior to, I believe, yes.
and that's on Hope Spring Drive.
Yes.
And when you arrive, the first thing you do is meet with Sergeant Hosey.
To the best of my recollection, yes.
And part of that is to be briefed on all that transpired before you got there.
Correct.
And that gives you a better understanding of what needs to be done while you're there.
Yes.
And what was the situation report at that point?
Going based on recollection,
Mr. Baez?
I'm not asking him for specific statements. I'd just like to know what information, what he knew about the case at that point. If I can rephrase it so he doesn't give any specific statements.
Okay, you can attempt to rephrase the question.
Without giving us any hearsay or anything that someone, any information, or without telling us what exactly was said, can you give us a general idea of what you were looking at when you arrived?
well, primarily a missing persons case.
And what else?
I can't recall if there was indication on scene or if it was through a phone call prior about some theft, theft of a car or theft of money, some theft involved.
Now, when you specifically got there, were you made aware that Miss Anthony had already gone to Sawgrass Apartments?
Yes.
Okay, and that was with Acevedo, Deputy Acevedo, the female officer.
I don't recall who took her at the time. I just recall being told that they had already gone to Sawgrass.
And you were aware that there was nobody home there?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. These answers are based on hearsay that was provided.
Sustain.
Did you have any information about that apartment as to whether suspects were identified?
Same objection.
Sustain.
Did you have any other information about Miss Anthony?
Very vague, I'm sorry.
About Miss Anthony's actions that evening?
Aside from the fact that she had gone with deputies to another location, I can't recall if they had already told me. Obviously, a statement had been filled out. I don't know if it was just handed the statement or if they told me outside.
Were you aware how long the apartment was vacant that she had pointed out?
Any answer would be based on hearsay information.
Sustain.
Did you feel sufficiently informed as to what the situation was when you arrived?
I had I guess, a general understanding of why I was there, primarily to look for a missing child.
And when you arrived, did you see the garage door open?
I don't recall what the condition of the garage door.
Did you see the car that evening?
Which car?
The Pontiac Sunfire.
I don't recall what I saw parked where.
Were you made aware of anything going on with that car?
At some point throughout that evening, and I can't recall when, I remember there was a comment made about an odor coming from a car, but I don't recall who made it or at what point throughout my time there that occurred.
So immediately upon getting this information, you went and inspected the car?
No.
You are told that there is a missing child.
Yes.
You are told that the location where Miss Anthony had taken officers showed no results.
Something along those lines, yes.
And then you were told about an odor coming from a car.
Yes.
And you never went and looked at the car.
No.
You never called CSI to come look at the car.
No.
You never secured any possible evidence that may or may not have been at that car.
Upon my arrival that night, when I first responded, no.
You did absolutely nothing with the car.
Correct.
And in your investigation at that point, or that entire evening, you didn't find it necessary to secure that car in any way.
No.
Overrule, that's the last question.
You may answer, sir.
No.
Now, one of the first things you looked at with Miss Anthony was she was a suspect, did you not?
At the time I got there, she wasn't a suspect of anything. She was a mother of a missing child.
And despite all of this information that you had, you didn't consider Miss Anthony a suspect.
I hadn't talked to her yet. I didn't know what she was going to tell me. I was just going based on what other deputies had told me upon arrival.
Did you instruct Deputy Hosey to unhandcuff Miss Anthony because you wanted to come down and speak to her?
I did not. I did not even know she was handcuffed.
Did you Mirandize or read Casey Anthony her Miranda warnings prior to questioning her?
No.
And the reason for that is because you didn't think she was a suspect of anything.
She was a mother of a missing 2.5-year-old. That's what I was there to investigate, as a missing 2.5-year-old. I had no reason to Mirandize her.
A mother of a 2.5-year-old who was giving information that did not appear to pan out. Is that correct?
According to what I was told before getting there, yes. But I hadn't talked to her yet, so I don't know if they misunderstood. I don't know what she was going to tell me.
Well, you read her statement, did you not?
Yes.
And in fact, you testified prior to it getting admitted that you asked her if she was adopting it,
Yes.
correct? And in fact, you thought the information that was contained in there was suspect, did you not?
I wrote that in my report, yes.
Okay. But you thought it was suspect.
I can't recall what I thought at the time, but I do acknowledge that I wrote that in my report.
So since you think she's suspect, you think her stories are going on, but you don't think she's a suspect at all, is what you're saying.
You're saying that I think she's suspect.
Let me
I did
rephrase that to make that a little clearer. Her version is suspect according to you.
To what I wrote in the report, yes.
You have a missing child that's been missing for 30 days.
Yes,
Never reported.
correct.
The mother's not taking you to a location where you can find the child,
She hasn't taken me anywhere yet.
or prior officers.
As far as the officers are concerned, correct.
And in your opinion, she's not a suspect.
Yes.
Yes, she is a suspect, or yes, she's not a suspect.
You asked, in my opinion, is she a suspect? No, she's not a suspect.
Now, the statement that she gave, you read it over carefully
I read it over that night, yes.
because this is a very important matter.
Yes.
And did you notice that there was a portion in quotations on page 3?
Are you referring to the top 4
Yes.
lines down?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The portion that reads, quote, that a few places that she felt, quote, at home, end quote.
Yes.
Okay. And in this entire 4-page statement, that is the only portion that is in quotations, is it not?
Yes.
And when something is placed in quotations, in your experience, that means it's important or somebody wants attention drawn to it?
I can't answer to why people put quotes on certain words. Sometimes it's proper, sometimes it's not, so I
In
couldn't
your
answer that.
experience, sir, your experience,
Repeat the question.
when people put things in quotations, does that mean they want attention drawn to it?
I can't tell you what they want to. People use quotations all the time. It didn't stand out to me. It doesn't stand out to me now.
Okay. Now, did you ask her why she didn't feel at home in her own home?
No.
And you would later also characterize or document that she went somewhere where she felt safe.
I'm sorry, the question again?
You would later document that she went somewhere where she felt, quote, safe, end quote.
If you're referring to my report?
Yes.
Yes.
In fact, you put that in quotes.
I won't disagree.
And when you put things in quotes, it's because it's important.
I couldn't tell you what my state of mind was when I put it in quotes. Obviously I did, but I can't tell you why I did it now.
So you have no idea why you put that in quotes.
I did. I can't answer now as to why I did.
Did you ask her why she didn't feel safe at home?
I don't believe so, no.
And then you document that the next time you use quotes is when you describe that she had seen movies and reports. You put that in quotes too.
I won't disagree if you're referring to my report, yes.
And you're referring, when you talk about that, is to why she didn't call the police.
Correct.
Did you put that in quotes because you thought that was a pretty outrageous statement to make?
No, based on my recollection, I put it in quotes because it was one of the things that she told me. I don't recall it being on the statement, so it must have been one of the things we mentioned before at the tape or during our drive. So I used it to acknowledge what she said to me.
I'm talking specifically about your frame of reference here, okay? I want to know from you that, in your opinion, when you're eliciting and speaking to her in reference to these statements, that you think they're a little outrageous.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. He's attempting to elicit hearsay statements of his client that were not elicited by the state.
I'll withdraw the question, Judge.
Sustained.
Now, the statements that you first took from her that we heard a while ago, let me give you a copy of that. Do you have one with you?
Not with me, no.
You may.
I'd like to show Detective Defense Exhibit U. Now, when I'd like to take you down this statement, Detective, and I'll start off on page 2. And line 10. First area that you start inquiring is, you're basically telling her she fabricated a story, are you not?
No.
What is your purpose of saying if you're trying to fabricate a story?
A lot of times before I get an official statement from someone, I'll give them the chance to change whatever they've said previously. I won't hold against them. So a lot of times in an interview, I'll say, listen, I want to make sure that you're telling me the truth. Whatever you may have said in the past, I don't care. What I care about is what you're going to tell me now. So if you're asking me in what context I made that statement, that's the best I can answer that right now.
So what you're telling this jury is that the reason you made that statement is not because you find her story to be a fabrication, but that's something you always say.
I didn't find her story to be a fabrication then because I hadn't had a chance to investigate what she claimed. She was very detailed and specific in her statement, so there was a lot I had to follow up on. I couldn't say that I could tell for sure it was fabricated at that point.
Okay. let's start off with some of them details then. She tells you that she had known Zenaida Gonzalez for 4 years.
Are you
Correct?
referring to a particular page? You want me to follow along or just in general?
Page 3, line 21.
Yes, almost 4 years.
Okay. And then she tells you that that she was introduced to this person on the next page by a Jeffrey, or actually it's on that page, on line 23, Jeffrey Michael Hopkins.
Yes.
And when you question her about Jeffrey Michael Hopkins, she can't give you any information on how to reach him.
I could only go based on what I asked her, and I believe I asked her where he worked or if she had a contact number for him, and she did not.
So the answer to my question is yes, she didn't give you any information on how to reach him.
Oh, he told me that he used to work at Universal Studios. I would consider that information.
Okay? And then she told you that he went to North Carolina and then moved down to Jacksonville.
Yes.
Then on page 5, she goes into this several statements about SIM cards. Did any of that make sense to you?
No, I'm going to object. That's not relevant. His opinion.
Relevancy, Mr. Baez?
I'll rephrase the question, Judge.
Okay.
Did you confront her with any of this information about SIM cards?
I wouldn't say confront. I was trying to get clarification on what she meant since she said she had lost a phone. And when I was asking her for certain numbers, she brought up a SIM card. So I was asking questions for clarification on that.
All right, I'd like to take you to page 11. Lines 16 through 25. The exhibit, I've read it into the record and it's in
Okay.
evidence. You ask her if she had spoken to anyone else about Caylee being missing, and she answers Juliette Lewis, correct?
Yes.
She says, she's one of my coworkers at Universal. Correct? Okay. And then you take it a step further and you ask her what she does at Universal. Correct?
Yes.
And she tells you an event coordinator. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Then you ask her for a number for Juliette Lewis. Correct?
Yes.
And she can't come up with one.
To quote her, she says, I can't think of one.
Okay. Then immediately after that, she tells you that the reason she doesn't have a number is because she just moved up north within the last 2 months to New York.
Yes.
And she's subleasing her apartment.
According to what she said, yes.
Okay. And then at that point, she tells you she doesn't work at Universal anymore.
Correct.
So within 10 seconds, she's telling you she has a coworker at Universal Studios, correct?
Yes.
Who's an event planner, a current employee,
Yes.
and then this person all of a sudden moved up to New York a couple of months ago.
Yes.
But her child's only been missing a month.
Yes.
And she has no number for this person.
Whether she did or didn't, I don't know. She told me she did not.
So you couldn't investigate or couldn't confront anyone about, well, let me strike that and rephrase that. At that point in time, did you do anything to say, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense?
No.
Did you realize that you were dealing with something a little bit unique
You're asking me to testify to what I felt at the time I was doing the interview. I can't tell you what I felt. I can't say it was unique. I was in an information gathering stage at the time. I was meeting with the mother of a child who's missing. The purpose was to try and get information to locate the child.
You're getting information about one of only 2 outcry witnesses to a crime that occurred a month ago, correct?
It turned out she only gave me 2 outcry witnesses, but there's more to the interview. So at that point, yes, she had given me 2.
And she's telling you in 1 second that the person works with her, and then the next second she's saying she doesn't. All within, what, 10, 15 seconds?
Correct.
And you didn't think at that specific moment that you're dealing with something unique.
I'm going to object. It's documented. This has been asked and answered. The exhibits speak for
Sustained.
itself.
You didn't do anything based on that information, did you, sir?
Well, eventually I would go to Universal Studios and try and identify these people. So yes, I did something.
At the end of this interview, you ask her if she's got a drug problem.
Do you have a page and line number, sir?
Yes, page 14, lines 21 through 25.
Yes, I did.
You ask her about cocaine.
Yes,
You ask her about meth,
yes,
ecstasy,
yes.
and anything else.
I don't read it off the top of my head, so no, I believe that was it.
And the reason is because,
Sorry, other prescription narcotics as well, just before that.
okay, you're asking her if she's on any prescription medication.
I was asking her if she had any problems with drugs or narcotics, either prescription narcotics, she interrupts, says no, or drugs, cocaine, ecstasy, meth. I asked her if she had problems, not if she was on any.
Okay. Then you ask her if she's ever committed suicide. Next page.
I don't think I could have asked her if she's ever committed suicide, because if she had, she wouldn't be
Thoughts of
there.
committing suicide, excuse me.
Yes.
All right. And then you ask her if she's ever been to Lakeside or anything like that.
Yes.
Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what Lakeside is?
Lakeside is a local receiving facility that we would take people who have mental problems or mental issues, such as under a Baker Act. If somebody's suicidal, have thoughts of hurting themselves, and we would take them into custody, for lack of a better word. We would take them to Lakeside so they can get treatment and be seen by a doctor or a psychiatrist and perhaps get some help.
And the reason you're asking these questions, detective, is because you realize that the statements being given to you at that particular point in time, at the very beginning of this case, are just not right.
No, I can't tell you the reason I asked that question. Obviously, I did. It's just part of an information gathering process. I ask a lot of questions.
So this is not, so basically, this is just something you do out of routine, and it's not something that you do as a matter of this specific case.
Your Honor, I object. It's argumentative. He's answered the question.
Sustained.
You asked those questions because of what you had the information that you had gathered in your investigation at that point? Or is that because, excuse me, or is that because you do this as a matter of routine?
Waiting for you.
Objection asked and answered.
I don't think it has been answered, Judge.
Sustained.
If I can have just a moment, Judge.
Yes, sir.
See if I have anything for it. Detective, were you made aware that evening, or did you make any other inquiries about Caylee Anthony to other individuals in the home?
I know I had a brief conversation with Cindy. George was there. I don't recall a conversation with him, but I'm not saying I didn't.
And were you made aware of any possible seizures that Caylee Anthony may have?
Object. Facts not in evidence, and this would be based on a hearsay response.
Sustained based upon hearsay.
Did you get any medical information about Miss Anthony?
Same objection.
As to that particular question, did he get any medical information? He can simply answer yes or no.
Aside from asking her the questions about Lakeside, if you would consider that medical information, or prescription drugs, if you would consider that, no.
Do you have a copy of your report, sir?
Not with me, no, sir.
Judge, I have no further questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any redirect?
Not on these issues, thank you, Your Honor.
May the detective be excused for this time, subject to recall.
Yes, sir.
Detective, you may be excused, subject to recall. Thank you, sir.